Well, it's great to be here. Thank you.
A very warm welcome to Crawley.
Thank you very much.
How's the trip down from Tunbridge Wells?
It was fine, but I went to bed at 4:30 last night.
You were saying
Just slightly boggled.
your birthday party.
My birthday.
Oh, birthday.
Well, thank you for
So
coming.
I'm 40 now.
21 again.
And again.
We have some people on their way from 10th Clangton Barking. I think they're seeing another actor there today, aren't they? But they should be.
Who they see?
Nick Courtney and Richard Franklin.
Richard Franklin and Nick Courtney.
Oh right, two.
But they are so keen to see you as well. They're on their way here now as we speak.
Oh right.
I'd like to go over your life and career briefly anyway. You were born in Wanstead in London.
Yeah. I'm very impressed, you know.
You grew up in Milford Green, I think, as well, didn't you?
Woodford Green.
Woodford Green,
Yeah.
beg your pardon. And
Essex girl.
you're the daughter of an insurance broker.
Yeah. Dear old dad.
When did the acting bug happen? I mean,
I was 4, and I was playing Little Miss Muffet, and Judith Black was playing the Spider. And I was eating my curds away, and Judith came beside me, and I really got frightened. And I screamed at the top of my voice, and I jumped up, and the thing was made of glass, and it shattered. And all these little barefoot 4-year-olds were running around.
Oh, dear.
And I ran off screaming and screaming and screaming, and the parents adored it because I hadn't done it in rehearsal. I was just taken by the performance, you know. And I literally stopped the show because the audience was laughing so much, and they had to sweep up all the
I can
class
imagine,
before
yeah.
it
Quite
could go
dangerous.
on. And I can remember going home to my mum going, "But she would behave like that, wouldn't she? That is how she would be. She wouldn't, you know. It says she's frightened. She runs away." So, and I really liked the audience reaction. I thought, "Oh, I could do this."
So obviously, after that, then amateur dramatics.
Age 12, joined the
you got
amateurs.
involved with.
It was like I'd come home. I still do to a certain extent, feel a bit of a misfit in certain circumstances. And when I joined the amateurs, I felt, oh, I've arrived. Time passed without me looking at the clock, you know. It was just, I felt comfortable.
You went to RADA when you were 17.
Yeah, let me in very young.
Now, RADA is probably the Rolls Royce of drama schools, I would think. It's certainly one of the top drama schools in the world. Was it difficult to get enrolled in that, or how did that come about?
Well, I think I found it a lot easier than a lot of the other students, because in those days it was quite a strict regime, and I was still very school-oriented, so I found it quite liberal. But those people that had travelled the world, or, you know, I remember we had a plumber, you know, who ran his own business in our term, and I think they found it quite hard to go back to, you've got to be in at 9 o'clock and you're in trouble if you're not. It was a very hard work. It was a 13-hour day, 6-day week.
Do you think that being at RADA for that 2-year period really prepared you to be an actress, or does it really just give you the tools to become an actress, do you think?
That's a very interesting question. I think someone like Yat, who teaches at Drama Centre, says it takes 10 years to become an actor. And I heard that when I left RADA, and I thought, oh, it's rubbish, I can act, I'm trained, I can do it. But actually, 10 years down the line, I think, yeah, he's right. Once you have to assimilate all the bits of knowledge.
Do you think you're always learning as an actress?
Always learning. I think you're always learning as a human being. I think if you stop learning and changing, then you're dead.
Was Mary Tam at RADA when you were there?
Yeah, same time. Funny, isn't it?
Is it?
I couldn't believe it when she rang me up. She said, "Okay, I've been offered Doctor Who assistant. How much were you earning? What should I go?" Was it a good job? Should I accept it?
Making sure she wasn't going to be ripped off by the BBC.
Yes, exactly. Little knowing that I'd been ripped off by the BBC.
Now, when you left RADA, you were in rep for a few years. Now, rep is something, that repertory theatre, that really today doesn't really exist. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was something that you learnt your trade, how to become an actress by doing parts in rep. Can you just explain what that is to the people here, perhaps?
What rep is?
Yes.
Well, ostensibly it can mean doing a terrible play in 2 weeks with a terrible director, which is something you're never taught at drama college, where you have 7 weeks to work on the classics with someone who really knows their stuff, you know. So it teaches you how to think on your feet, how to think for yourself, how not to rely on the text or the director. And then once you've done that, and then you then combine that work with working with the classics with a good director, then you can come up with something really fantastic. But just the sheer
turnover.
spirit, what's that? No, spirituality is a bit of a heavy word, but when you're working that intensely with one group of people on several different plays, you create a fantastic rapport with your fellow actor that you often don't achieve when you're just going into guest on something.
Yes, I can appreciate that. You learn how to deal with them and how they will act in certain situations. Yeah.
Well, you get on farting
yes.
terms, you know,
yes.
you really do.
Yes, and if something mistake happens, you can probably
keep in there.
Yes.
And you can see in somebody's like, oh, they're going to dry, I'll come in and help them dry. You know what dry means. We just forget.
Yes.
I'm going to come in and you just get that kind
so
of...
the adrenaline's really, really pumping. After you did rep for a few years around the country, then you worked for the RSC, the Royal Shakespeare Company. There again, one of the top companies in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you've gone to RAD, you've gone to the RSC. That must have been amazing.
Well, I didn't know. My ambition was to join the Royal Shakespeare Company, and I thought I would do it in about 8 years after leaving college. So my then agent said, I've got an interview for you for the World Shakespeare Company at the Aldwych, the World Shakespeare Company. And I thought it was something to do with the New World Theatre season that was going on there.
I see.
So I went in and I auditioned, and as I came out and I closed the door, I saw this plaque on the door that said Royal Shakespeare Company rehearsal rooms, and I thought, my God, I just auditioned for the Royal Shakespeare Company. I had no idea. And I rang her up and I said, you cow, why didn't you tell me? She said, well, you'd have been so nervous, you'd have blown it. So I thought I'd sort of trick you. Very clever.
That must have been a marvellous training ground. I mean, you're doing plays and you're working with actors of such a high calibre.
That was the best trick. That was better than... I loved RADA. It was better than RADA. It was better than rep. I was working with Cis Berry, John Barton, Trevor Nunn, you know. And I think if you can do Shakespeare, you can do anything, really. It really was a fabulous...
You really started at the top, didn't you, in some respects?
In a way. It was a small part, though. I only went in
yes,
to do 12 lines.
I mean, it doesn't matter, because you're working with those kind of people. You are learning so much as well.
I did learn.
I mean, you can watch what they're doing when you're in the wings or whatever,
I remember my favourite speech from Shakespeare is a bit of Barone from Love's Labour's Lost. And my favourite quote, I won't do the whole speech, I won't bore you with the whole speech. My favourite quote is, and when love speaks, the voice of all the gods makes heaven drowsy with the harmony. And I remember every night I'd go into the wings and watch Ian Richardson do it. He did it from up a tree. Just to sit in the wings and think,
So you're doing all these marvellous plays. Was there some pressure from your agent at the time to move into TV?
After I'd finished the RSC, she
yes.
said, let's go for a TV series now, get your face known. And I went for several. I went for Angels.
The New Avengers, Purdy.
New Avengers.
Yeah.
There's one other, I can't remember, and Doctor Who. And I got like that close to all of them. Got down to the last 10, I was told, for Purdy. And then not bad, but I didn't get it. But Jo's fantastic. It was fantastic in it.
I think she was very, very good indeed, certainly.
Yeah.
I think your character originally wasn't going to be the character it turned out to be. Wasn't Leela supposed to be a Victorian waif initially?
I don't know. You have more information than I do.
I think that at one stage the producer was going to have a Victorian waif who was going to come into the series, a bit like Victoria Waterfield, Deborah Watney's character in the Patrick Troughton's era, and be introduced to the universe, the world, and all the travels, and the same kind of wonder. And something happened, I think, they decided to come up with this character, Leela, who was Savage of the 17.
Certainly not waif-like.
No, very independent, and but it's interesting because you did several London stories, didn't you, based in Victorian England.
There was Talons, wasn't there?
Indeed, and you did the horror of Fan Rock as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if one of those stories, if they were going to bring your character in then, as opposed to when they did.
I think Talons was mooted as the first one at one point.
So the Victorian idea of the girl then might have worked then, mightn't it?
Might have done, yes. I mean, I don't think they explored enough that teacher-pupil relationship between Tom and I. I think that could have really been investigated a lot more.
What you went for an audition? Obviously, I think Pennant Roberts directed the audition.
Saw him last night, yeah.
Yeah,
he was
your
at my
birthday
party, yeah, yeah.
Strange.
Yeah.
He directed you in a scene from what would have been probably one of the first stories you were going to do. I think, is that right? It was a scene, your actual audition as such.
It's true then. The evil one does eat babies. It was that scene.
So it wasn't the face of evil. Then.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, and he said the reason he gave it to me was that I made him work in the interview. I gave him so much as an actor that he felt he had to perform as well, rather than just fill in the lines.
Must have impressed him, I should think.
Well, he's got a little black book where he keeps all his actresses and actors.
8 out of 10, 9
Yes,
out of 10.
stars, he put stars.
So how many have you got?
Oh, I got quite a few. I had a sneaky look one day. Oh, what do you think of so-and-so? What do you think of so-and-so?
You were cast as Leela. I think Leela in the language of the 17 means dark-eyed beauty.
Well, I think it's an Urdu word that means dark-eyed beauty.
Is it? Is that really?
Mm. So I've been told. It's not something I know for a fact.
Oh, that's something I read. Your character was a very, very strong character.
Mm.
She was fiercely independent. But one of the things I liked about the setup between Tom Baker and you was because she was quite naive, even though she was very, very independent. She could look after herself. And he could tell her things. So rather than, as he was telling her things, he was telling the audience as well. Like, there's a lovely sequence where he's describing why the TARDIS is like it is.
Yes, I remember.
That is a brilliant scene. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And the cube that will fit inside the other cube if it's further away. And you say it's something like it's silly or it's stupid or something.
Stupid.
But that's a brilliant way of describing it, I think. And that came across to the audience beautifully.
That's, in a way, that's what I meant about that area could have been explored so much more. It was very sweet, that area.
Indeed.
And
There's a film coming out later this month called Notting Hill with Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, and in it it's got a, well, not so much as a scene, there's a subplot in which the press are very, very intrusive to Julia Roberts' character, and she's playing a character not very removed from herself, in fact. Now, that I reminded of the fact that when you had your press call for Doctor Who, the press hounded you mercilessly, didn't they?
they were awful, yeah. I got the police out one point.
You had to change your phone number, you had to go ex-directory, they were camping out on your doorstep.
Yeah.
You can appreciate that probably more than anybody, how intrusive they are into your life.
I tell you, Eastenders, it's even worse. Not so much for me, but the kids that are, well, you know, the 20-somethings. Now we have people trying to get through security, pretending they're delivering parcels. We have the son that's managed to get on set through all the security cameras and the security guys.
This must be something that is...
Our phones are tapped. Our studio, you know, dressing room phones.
Do you learn to live with that, do you think, or do you never really learn to live with it? Because I mean, I suppose an actor and actress, to reach a certain level of prominence, they become well known. Particularly if they're on TV, their face is shown. You had that back in the 70s. You've got it. I suppose you've had it ever since then because people remember you. Can you deal with that now, or is it something that still is horrible? I mean, it must be awful waking up in the morning and find out there's people trying to take photographs of you. You know, it's a horrendous thing, isn't it?
It is odd. Fame is, it's a very peculiar thing, fame. I have a real love-hate relationship with it. In a way, the better known you are, the more isolated you become, because you have to be so careful about what you say to who and when. On the other hand, it opens the door to, you know, lovely friendships and days like this, and which wouldn't be available to me otherwise. It's very peculiar.
I suppose everyone feels they know you because of your work. Of course, you don't know them, so it's an odd kind of situation, really.
Yeah, it is odd. I mean, when I first did Doctor Who, I remember someone coming to me in Bristol and going, "How's your dog, Bosie?" And that being really kind of thrown by the fact that
They
she
know all
married
this
a dog
information.
called
Yes.
Bosie, who I part-based Leela on,
Really?
by the way. Yeah, yeah.
You based Leela on your dog?
On my dog. And the little girl that lived upstairs called Sally. Because I thought Leela's really intelligent, but she's kind of part animal. There's just a bit of animal in there. And I thought when my dog listened, he held his breath and just put his head on one side. So I just kind of adopted some of that body language.
Oh, interesting.
And highly intelligent dog, of course.
You appeared in some of the strongest stories, not just of your era, but of any era of Doctor Who. I mean, I think people here, if you think of Robots of Death, and you think of Talons of Weng Chiang, they're excellent stories. The writing was superb.
In the end, you can only be as good as your material. And
You were very lucky then, because a lot of those stories they're classics. Even now, they hold up. You watch them, and they're better than anything else on TV.
Yeah.
Also, you're working with Tom Baker, who I should think it must have been strange working with him, because he tends to dominate scenes he appears in. He's like this dangerous actor that it must have been terrifying to start with.
I've never worked with anyone as extraordinary as Tom, I have to say, and it wasn't without its problems. It's common knowledge that it had its difficulties, but I have huge respect for the way he handled his job and the way he worked. He's very, very dedicated to the programme.
I mean, probably more than any other actor, he's associated with that role because he did it for 7 years.
Yeah. And the way he's kept himself isolated from the others, I think he's kind of claimed the role in a way that the others haven't. Off screen as well as on.
I think so, yes. He's had trouble shaking it off actually as well, I suppose, because of the typecasting.
But because he's so charismatic and extraordinary, it's like Tom Baker will either be a star or not working. It's like he's not a jobbing actor. He's too extraordinary.
He's got a very powerful voice.
Amazing voice, yeah. So you're not going to cast him as the boy next door,
Indeed.
are you?
No,
he's going to be something very dynamic.
My hands are going.
All right.
I'll flap them around a bit. I read somewhere that your favourite actor that appeared in Doctor Who was actually Patrick Troughton. That you always wanted to work with him. Is that true?
I loved Patrick.
Me too. I think he was brilliant.
I loved him. I loved doing conventions with him.
It's so long he's no longer with us, of course.
Yeah.
But did you actually work with him ever?
No, only on conventions.
I see, it's a shame.
I worked with his son. I worked with David.
David.
On the Bill Baggs videos.
Strange. On Stranger.
Thank you. He's lovely too. He's lovely to work with.
I'm sure.
Very funny.
Very like his father in many respects.
Yeah, I think they've got the same twin. They're outrageous flirts, both of them. Outrageous. I remember when I first, he said, "My, your eyes are blue. This is Patrick. They're quite blue." And we both knew it was a quote from somewhere, and neither of us could remember where. And it wasn't until he died I remembered it was from The Importance of Being Earnest. Yeah, every time I thought, what's that quote from? What's that?
It's a shame you couldn't remember it at the time.
Yeah.
When you came to leave Doctor Who, it was very, very badly written out, that sequence.
Tell me about it.
Now, I think you'd actually accepted an acting job in Bristol at the time, which you'd actually agreed to do. So was the producer hoping you'd change your mind?
Yeah. He came up to me the night before we recorded the last scene and said, "You know what, we can still change it, you can still run in and press that button, we can change it very easily." I think they thought they'd managed to persuade me.
That is probably one of the worst written scenes for an exit for a character ever.
Oh, I know.
And it's a shame because it was totally against how your character should have left the series.
I should have died saving the Doctor's life.
Indeed,
or...
yeah, that would have been superb.
Yeah.
That would have been the ideal way that Leela could have, and it would have been a very memorable way to exit the series. But to be married off.
And then that laugh, that funny laugh from Tom afterwards. Do you remember? That they put in? I know, but I think that was instigated by Tom. I think Tom
You got to keep
that.
K9, but it wasn't much of a consolation prize, really.
No. Much as I love John Leith.
Now, after you left Doctor Who, you went on and did a lot of theatre work again.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem to fall back on that quite a bit. Sorry, you were going to say?
I was going to say I've been very careful to mix and match. I think doing theatre keeps you match fit as an actor. I think it's very important.
Would you say that your first love is theatre?
Really, deep.
You think that is, for an actress, that is the ultimate?
And I think studio theatre is where the best work is done, because you're not having to think technically. You can act as if you're on camera, but it's all in the right sequence, and you can really just enter the bubble and do it from beginning to end.
Yeah, and also, I suppose, in some respects, if you're doing a performance night after night, you can hone that performance. You can actually try, if you will, and better it each time you do it.
It's amazing how much an audience can teach you. You know, you can have real trouble with a laugh, particularly laugh. You can have a laugh line. You know it's a laugh line instinctively in rehearsal, and it's not till you get on the boards that there's something in the atmosphere that you think, oh, that's the way to deliver it. And it's completely given you by the audience.
So do you think a play, say if someone's going to go and see a play, should they go and see a play towards the end of its run then? Because it's going to be, or will it lose some of its freshness?
There's something about the adrenaline of a first night that's very special, I think. I think it's best to see a play when it's about 3 weeks in.
Interesting. By that time you feel that you've settled down in the roles.
But there's still nerves going, there's still a bit of adrenaline.
Which you need to have to get that sort of, that dangerous quality, that spontaneity.
Apparently, I've never done a commercial run. I've done a play for 2 years, but it's been in repertoire, so that you you know, do 2 or 3 plays over that time, so you're always alternating. But apparently, if you do the same one every night, you go a bit mad at 5 months. You go a bit balmy. You do like kind of shopping lists in your head while you're speaking.
I was thinking that, because an actress does a role, so an actor does a role for 6 months, a year, 2 years. It must get boring after a while, surely.
I don't know. I don't think I want to know.
You've done a lot of TV in your time. You've done Bergerac and you've done Tenko. These are good quality series. Is there anything you really would like to do that you haven't done?
I'd love to do a major movie
Motion
at some
picture.
point. Yeah.
You've already done 1 or 2, haven't you?
Yeah, very few movies, and none of them very, you know. I mean, I love doing kids
You
stuff.
did a horror movie, Disciple of Death or something, in the early 70s.
Did you never remember that?
I did, just happened to know
Well-kept
it.
secret.
1972, didn't it?
Someone sent it to me really recently.
Oh dear. Wasn't me.
Somebody who's doing, Jonathan, somebody who's doing a whole thesis on horror movies. He said, would I like to see a copy? And I never saw it all the way through. I was tempted.
What did you think?
Well, I wish I hadn't. I thought I was all right. You know, I'm a good girl, I am. It was that sort of acting.
Yeah, but it's in the early 70s. I mean, you know, you have to start somewhere, don't you?
It was low budget movie though, wasn't it? Debbie, did you see it? Did you
I have.
brave it all the way through?
I can't say it's one of my favourite movies, but it's I like horror movies, so I suppose I watched it for that reason. And the fact that you were in it as well, of course. Everybody has to. When you published on horror movies, says Lola Ward, and everyone's done horror movies occasionally.
We had a great time doing it, I have to say. We were in a place called Boscastle, which was 40 miles from anywhere, near a station, near a cinema. And it was like The Prisoner. Every time we went for a walk, I'd have this runner come running, going, where are you going, where are you going? I've got to keep tabs on you, before mobile phones, of course. I've got to keep tabs on you. And it was like, you know, that bubble that came and sucked you back again.
I read somewhere something quite odd. When Tom Baker was going to leave the series and Peter Davison was going to come in, John Nathan Turner contacted you with a view to coming back into the series at the end of Tom Baker's last story and be there for Peter Davison's 2 or 3 stories.
Yeah.
And you had agreed initially to do like 2 or 3 stories, but John Nathan Turner wanted you to do the whole season.
Yes, we didn't get as far as agreeing. I mean, he just
Well,
said, I want you back for a whole
muted.
season. And I
Yes.
said, well, I only want to do the 2, the Tom leaving and Peter joining, possibly one of them.
This was to smooth over the fact the new Doctor was coming in.
Well, because the fans are so loyal, he didn't want to break that loyalty by bringing in completely new people. He wanted somebody that was, you know, reasonably popular to just smooth over the crack.
I can understand you not wanting to do a whole series because obviously you become typecast in that role again, and I'm sure it's...
Yes, although in retrospect I think it might have been quite a nice thing to do really. And having since worked with Peter as his wife in Molly for a Sky series.
Yes, that's right.
And something else. Oh, Bill Baggs again. Another Bill Baggs thing.
Were you asked to do the Five Doctors because...
No, not a whisper, not a hint,
Do
not
you-
a phone call, nothing.
Do you think this might have been because you turned down doing the changeover, do you think?
What can I say?
Because it was only a few years
Do you
before.
think JNT holds grudges?
He might do.
I think it also might have been because Tom refused to do it as well. So to use Tom, they had to use outtakes.
Yes, you're quite right, because you appeared with Tom's character, and of course he was only in sort of some flashback sequence from a previous story that had never been transmitted at the time, with Lull of Ward, I believe, yes.
Exactly. So he had his companion.
But you did come back in Children in Needs.
That was your first
shame.
ride as Eastenders.
I mean, it raised money for charity, which is a great thing, but it was appalling.
Oh, wasn't it?
I mean,
Did you understand it?
No, I didn't.
Did anybody?
Well,
No,
it's a roundabout, basically, and don't
fun.
bother to think anything.
The idea of...
Everybody's a roundabout everywhere.
Yeah.
So just as a runabout, for a bit of fun, don't take it seriously.
Even the cameramen were running about. We had one of those steady cams.
Well, it's because it was done in 3D, that's why I think a lot.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
This gorgeous German cameraman who worked out, because they're so heavy those things, you know, worked out everything with his rippling muscles, and he didn't wear a shirt. He was all oiled out.
So it's quite
Walking
popular.
around with this, yeah, I really like working with him. But what with Sylvester trying to make me laugh, and this hunky cameraman running around me with this, I couldn't concentrate on anything. John getting, maybe he wasn't cross, but pull yourself together, you know, all that's going on. And Sylvester arrived with a hangover because he'd had a first night the night before, and somebody had already shot their sequences. Was it Colin? Colin had it. And they're going. He had a whole load of techno speak, and they're going, "Oh, Sylvester will do that. Sylvester will do that." John, going, "Oh, I don't want to do this. Sylvester will do that."
Well,
so he got lumbered with this hangover, me giggling, a whole load of extra techno speak, and this hunky cameraman putting his foot off. Well, me anyway.
You had a really strange outfit in that as well, didn't you? It's like a sort
You
of
should have seen what it was like before I.
Cinderella's
fiddled around with it,
rags,
yeah.
isn't it, really?
Well, they wanted me in my leotard, and no way.
No, I can
2 children later,
I
15
can
years
understand
on,
that,
and
yes.
no way.
Yes.
So they gave me this like
I
sack
thought
of
it was more like
potatoes.
a sort of score like.
I bet mini ha
Yeah.
ha, yeah. Expect high water to pop
Yeah.
out the TARDIS, didn't you?
It's a shame because if you look at what they did for Children in Need with Ren Atkinson and the recent thing, which was very clever.
That was really clever.
Jonathan
That was-
Pryce and Hugh Grant, and it really worked.
Yeah.
It was that's how it should have been done before.
I agree.
In the
It was
studio.
too adventurous, I think. The script was like that. Too many people.
Yeah,
You
'cause
know.
Doctor Who anyway was only worked, the less people,
Yeah,
the more
worked better.
concentrated. Doctor Who always worked better. The more people you get in, the more you lose it.
Yeah.
Who's always a concentrated thing.
Yeah.
That's why the home stories were always successful.
I think it was written very hurriedly as well because originally there was going to be a 30th anniversary special, which never actually happened.
Oh, right.
And that that bottomed out, and this was done as a sort of to fill that void left by the one hour special they're going to do, or whatever.
I didn't.
And they wanted to do something to celebrate the 30th anniversary, and they decided to make it into a charity
It's a
event.
real wasted opportunity, wasn't it?
Everyone looks really embarrassed at seeing that, and it's
Or giggling.
I say it raised money for charities, I suppose. It's
And it's a talking point.
not to have been in it would have been appalling, you think.
Wow. Did you hear about the publicity shot for that? Do you know the story behind
I
the
don't,
publicity
no.
shot? Because Tom refused to be photographed with the other doctors.
Is this where they use his waxwork from Madame Tussauds or something?
It tickled John Pertwee, no end.
Is that why Tom looks like he's sort of slightly lifted off the ground?
Yes, just a bit unreal, isn't it?
And they're putting their arms around him, aren't they? Or
Yes.
something?
Brilliant. Brilliant.
I've seen some strange photographs from that, so unbelievable. You mentioned the Bill Baggs videos that you've done. you're obviously not afraid to be associated with the character of Leela still, and even Doctor Who spin-offs. A lot of actresses and actors that have been in Doctor Who have been badly typecast afterwards. This doesn't seem to have affected you at all.
Well, I think because I did the Royal Shakespeare Company before Doctor Who, I've always been taken quite seriously
As an actress.
And I think that just stands me in good stead for...
Yeah, because you'd have that in the order, wouldn't it? The Royal Shakespeare, then Doctor Who. So you've shown you can be both serious and things.
And they've known, Theatreland's known my work long before TV Land did, so...
So you're saying if you'd done Doctor Who before the RSC work...
I think I'd have had more trouble getting work afterwards, yeah.
That's interesting because, as I say, you haven't had that problem. A lot of people in Doctor Who have had enormous problems shaking off. I mean, you're only in this series for a year, admittedly, but I mean, your career is similar to Mary Towns in some respects, because she was in this show for a year as well.
Was that all she did?
Yes, one season. And she is always working as well. Does a very, very varied career. So.
She's so beautiful, Mary. We had a RADA reunion recently. 60 years of Hugh Crutwell, who's our principal. And she just looks amazing. She just looks like she did when we were a student. Don't sit beside me, Mary. The other side of the table.
Are you good friends then?
Yeah. We meet up from time to time. Yeah.
She came last night, did she?
No, she didn't. No.
Oh, shame.
But one of our lot's just about to turn 50, so I'm trying to organise a trip down the river with as many RADA-ites as I can muster.
We saw you on BBC television shortly. Well, obviously you're doing EastEnders at the moment.
Yeah.
But you're on Blue Peter.
Yeah, what a thrill that was. And they wouldn't let me say, here's one I prepared earlier. I really wanted to say that.
Did you enjoy doing that?
Yeah, I did. It was a bit nerve-wracking. You know, it's 12 million viewing and it's live. It was a bit scary.
You've done live TV before?
Did the lottery. And interviews I've done live, yeah. But not done live performing. They're talking about doing a live EastEnders set in the restaurant between the kitchen and the dining room.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'd love to do it. I'd love it, yeah. Some of them are... Oh, I can't say.
Go on now.
There's a young lady present. Some of them are a bit scared.
I get the gist of what you're trying to say. You're playing EastEnders at the moment.
Yeah. Rosa.
We're very glad you've come here today. I mean, you're quite busy, aren't you?
A bit, yeah, just a bit.
Your birthday party as well, so we really appreciate you coming today. We're going to raise some money for your charity.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Do you want to talk about that a bit to the people here?
Well, yes, what can I tell you? You probably know most of it anyway. I was so moved by those photographs in 1990 of the orphans that normally I can't look at those pictures and I just send money and think, well, I've done my bit. But this one particular photograph of a little boy who'd been tied to his cot for 10 months. He had a bruise on his head where he'd just been banging against that, and I just couldn't bear it. And I cut it out and I pinned it up on the notice board. And then I was back with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and they gave me 4 weeks paid holiday, which is kind of unheard of. And I had just got married. I've just got separated now, but this is 10 years on. I had just got married and we hadn't had a honeymoon. So I shook my husband awake in the middle of the night and said, can we go to Romania? And he went, as long as we don't bring any babies back. So that's what we did. It took me 2 weeks to raise about £11,000. It was so high profile. And I had the whole of the RSC publicity machine working on my behalf. They did, I think, an 800 letter mail out.
This is nice of them.
Very nice of them. And Trevor Nunn gave me £1,000. Just, you know, he got the letter and he just sent me a grand. No, I didn't have to sign anything so I could get tax relief or, you know, just generous man. And for the last 10 years, once a year, I send out a van load of aid, and I've got a van load going in about 4 weeks. I'm waiting to get the date now. And this time I've been given an articulated lorry by someone called William Troop, who's going to drive it, and I don't have to bother about organising the drivers or the lorry or anything. I just have to fill it. So all the money today will go on vitamins and minerals, homeopathic remedies, and once the bulk of the money's been spent on that, I'll fill it out with toys and blankets and paper.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, we're raising money in two ways. One is going to be through raffle tickets we've sold. Another is going to be through autograph auctions, where previous guests who've given their autographs to us, we auction those off to people who want to buy them. All that money then will go to charity.
Thank
so
you.
no
Thank
trouble.
you.
We'll open this up now. Some questions from the audience. Does anybody want to ask Louise Jameson a question?
What was it like working with Leslie Schofield again?
Ah,
With you in
so
Place of
funny.
Evil?
I couldn't believe it when I walked in and I saw him there. And I'm going, he's part of my tribe. Yeah, we were on a quiz question recently. I don't know which TV programme, but they said, you know, which two actors were in Doctor Who are now appearing in a well-known soap together.
Yes, that's
fame indeed when you get the quiz.
Yes, I'm sure I've seen
Know that face?
know that face from somewhere.
He's just about to get married, isn't he?
Is he?
Yes, he's really just fallen in love. Just a year ago. Brilliant.
Any other questions? No one's got a question for Louise?
Theatre work.
Yeah.
Are there any other roles out there that you would like to play in the future?
I'd love to play Kate in The Taming of the Shrew. It would have to be a very particular interpretation now, given my age. I would like to have played it about 10 years ago. But I think with the right concept behind the play, it could still work.
Because a few years ago at the Young Vic in London, I went to see Rob Edwards from Robots of Death in a production of Measure for Measure, and that was fantastic.
He's
an
a lovely
open
actor.
stage with open entrances for actors to come on from all like four corners. It was a very intense play as well, Measure for Measure, but he was very good in it.
It's a very difficult play to do in the 1990s, you know, given the morality that lies underneath it. But I think the Young Vic is the most exciting space in London. Possibly the Almeida as well, but I think the Young Vic is just an amazing theatre.
Yeah, there's no curtains, there's no barriers, the audience
work on
is
two
there.
levels.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Everything from children's shows to Shakespeare to new writing. I think it's brilliant.
And have you thought about doing any theatre work in the outdoors, open air?
I played Rosalind in As You Like It in the Regent's Park in the early 80s.
Oh yeah.
Loved doing that. That was really difficult because we started it at Nottingham Playhouse and of course got all the intricacies and intimacies that you can do in an enclosed environment, and a lot of the subtlety gets lost when you go into the outdoors, but of course the grandiose stuff works a lot better.
Yeah,
you have to lift it.
Because last summer I went to see an open air production of Hamlet by one of the Oxford universities, that is where I am at the moment, and they were fantastic. They built a gantry through the trees and the lighting and everything, and the scene with Ophelia on the funeral. Yeah, oh, fantastic.
How did they do the ghost?
Just a voice with frozen mist, blocks of ice.
Oh right, dry ice.
Yeah, dry ice. Yeah, and that's how they created the ghost. Very good.
Clever.
Yeah. Fantastic outdoors with all the sword fights.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
What is it about Taming the Shrew then that really attracts you?
I love that battle of the sexes idea. And
So
working on that, working on that. It's what life's all about, really, isn't it?
Dialogue's very strong, isn't it?
Very strong. And again, a very difficult play to do in the 1990s. And, you know, given your feminine...
Yes,
but
I suppose it is, yes, you're right.
I think she is tamed. I think she is literally tamed. And to do that and yet retain power. Because, of course, loving and serving is, in a way, the height, isn't it? It's the strongest place you can be in. And to get that across within a play, it's fantastically moving, that last speech.
Would you do it as a period piece or as a modern play?
Oh, period piece. I don't think you could do it as a modern play. Like, I've seen The Merchant of Venice. In fact, I've done Portia in a modern. And it doesn't work because the whole point is the woman's entering a man's world. Or
yes,
trying to.
True.
And of course we have now.
It falls apart, doesn't it, if you try?
It doesn't really.
That's true. Any other questions for Louise?
My question's for Rosa, really.
Go on then.
Gianni and Pepe.
Yeah.
Where did she go wrong?
What?
Where did she go wrong?
Oh, they're gorgeous boys. Which is your favourite of those two?
I have to ask, what's my favourite of those two? I don't know really. It varies from week to week.
Does it?
Depends which one's miserable. Well, I like the one who's
You
happy.
like the one that isn't miserable? Yeah. When I first joined, everyone said, "Oh, it's Gianni's mum," and now they're all going, "Oh, it's Pepe's mum." You know, in the street.
Yeah.
So I think allegiance has switched because of Tiffany's death. The public's now more interested in Pepe at the moment, till the next major storyline.
Doing something like a soap, like EastEnders, you've got an enormous amount of lines to learn. It's, you know, it's an ongoing thing. Do you find it's difficult to keep the quality of your work at that high standard, with the sheer number of scenes you have to do and the bits of dialogue you have to come out with?
It's a very hard discipline, and I can see how it could slip. But I'm a bit of a goody two shoes. I really work. I really work out away from the studio.
Do you get much chance to actually to go over your lines in rehearsals?
No, no rehearsals.
So you just do that away from the...
So scenes like, I don't know if you've seen it recently, there's the confessional, which was more or less one speech, more or less. I could do a lot of work on my own. The big family scenes, I get a bit pissed off really, because they could. What the modern day director hasn't been taught at directing school is the power of the actor and what the actor can contribute to the work. We're seen as part of the jigsaw, and they have these fantastically good ideas of how to work video cameras and get lovely shots and use multi-camera so that it benefits the budget, and you know, all those lovely cams, steady cam, crane shots. But actually, the essence of the scene is often lost.
It's the dialogue.
Yeah, what the audience want to see is that forward thrust.
And also,
of
you
the
need
story.
the dialogue of the clashing of the characters. It's that
The
closeness,
relationships.
the relationships working off each other.
Exactly.
That always makes a good, any good.
And in order to get the relationships working in peak terms, to really get them working, you have to be absolutely secure on your lines. And you can only be absolutely secure on your lines if you can rattle them through with the person you're acting with. You can rattle them through at home. If you don't know how the cue's going to come at you, you can't pick up your cue. You know, so you've got to get it so you know it like the Lord's Prayer, so you can just rattle it off. And then you can invest it with all the emotion and all the thought that's necessary.
If I have the criticism of EastEnders, it is a bit doom and gloom, isn't it? It's a bit down. I mean,
but you see, those things, the other thing they're not taught. You see, I think you have to earn a pause. So in technical terms, you've got to go very quickly in order to get the full theatrical value out of the pause. Yeah?
Indeed.
Whereas if I did that, if I'd done that sentence, you have to go very quickly in order to... I've lost you.
Yes,
I've lost you as an audience.
It.
So you earn your pauses. So you... But these kids, these children that are directing us, don't know that.
Do you think the quality of directors then is gone downhill?
I think pictorially it's gone way up, but I think artistically, dramatically, they could do with some workshops. I'm not saying they're incapable of it, but I think what would be really good to add on to when they're training a director is to get some experienced actors in to teach a director how to direct actors, and then let them, you know, they can take it or leave it. It just gives them an idea of what we have to offer, because they just don't know.
He's someone like Pennant Roberts then that appreciates...
He trusts his actors.
Yes, indeed. He doesn't...
He really does trust his actors. I've done a scene with Penn where he's just in Tenko, where he just had intended to cut after the first half page and then alter the camera angles. It was a scene with Stephanie Beecham, and it was going. Something was gelling. He just let the cameras go, and we improvised the whole thing. He hadn't rehearsed, and because he trusted us and because he knew we'd worked off camera, he let it go.
You've done a number of plays for television, on Play for Today and things like that. Years ago, the Wednesday play Play of the Month, Play of the Day, they were filmed plays. They weren't as they are now when you just watch something on TV. It's really a mini feature film in some respects, isn't it?
Yeah. I wish they'd bring that back.
They're superbly acted.
Yeah.
You know, you get like Donald Sinden and Diana Rigg appearing,
John
Cherry Orchard and things like that, and they were excellently performed. We miss that on TV desperately, I think, now.
I agree.
There
It's
is
all budget oriented now.
Mm.
And again, you see the value of rehearsal. We used to rehearse those for 10 days before we'd go anywhere near a studio. We'd have half a day to go and choose the costumes. But now your clothes are thrown at you, you don't rehearse, you're in there. Because when you're rehearsing, you're not earning money. When you're recording, you're going to earn money.
It's sad.
It's the same with commercial theatre. I mean, I've played Elvira in Blythe Spirit on 5 days rehearsal. And it's, 2 hours worth of dialogue in your head.
That seems incredible. 5.5. That is scary.
It was scary. It was really scary. It was really
mate,
scary.
I just can't believe that.
Well, I knew the play really well, so I was in there with an advantage. But
how often do you normally get there to rehearse? What's the average?
For a commercial theatre, you'll get 2 weeks. For the Royal Shakespeare Company, you'll get 8. So for people in between, you get in between.
So that's why their standards so high. 8 weeks rehearsal.
Well, sometimes that can be a bit indulgent. Because sometimes you can hit your performance. I think 3 or 4 weeks is ideal. Because it makes you work. You don't get lazy. You have to get off the book, and then you have time to really investigate. And then a few previews before you let the press in, so that your final bit of learning from the audience can happen. I really don't think that can be underestimated.
These reduced price previews.
Yeah.
Helping to those.
I think they're really.
I like them actually, because it's still sort of happening, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a nice way of seeing a play, I think.
And you are teaching us.
Any other questions?
Yeah. How long do you envisage your role in Eastenders going? Can you envisage sort of still being there in 5 years' time, or do you not want to be typecast for that long, possibly?
I don't think I would be typecast, and I think I could generate my own work now. I've got a one-woman show about Christina Rossetti that I do, which is very, very grown-up stuff, and very far away from Rosa. So if all else fails, I can do that. I am a single parent with 2 teenage boys looking at further education.
So you've obviously got that income coming.
So I want the income. So given what I'd like to do is to take, in about 18 months, I'd like to take 6 months and then come back. That's my ideal, for maybe 2 or 3 years.
But providing they don't decide to, for some reason to write your characters out, you'd be happy to stay?
For a bit, yeah. I sort of thought I'd do 3 years when I got there, but I've done half that already, and I could certainly see myself doing it for another 3.
But could you see like sort of a coronet still playing the same part in 20 years' time?
No, I couldn't see that. It might happen. I never say never. But I think I'd be a bit frustrated, yeah. And it's slightly paranoid making, everybody's looking over their shoulder because so many people have been axed. And I don't want to be in a position where I've been asked to do a Kosovo benefit Tuesday week in Sevenoaks, and of course I want to do it. And 2 days ago they said no, you're not allowed to because of all these death threats on everybody. If you ally yourself politically, then you're putting your life at risk, and you're not allowed. And if you do something you're not allowed to do, they fine you an episode fee. So
This seems very hard.
Oh, it's just. Anyway, I said, I completely understand why you're telling me not to do it, so by all means fine me. Thinking they're going to sack me. And they've withdrawn. They've said, no, we're just advising you. We're not.
You really stood up to them, didn't you?
Well, my agent did. That's what my agent's for, But I don't want, but there was a bit of me going, oh my God, they're going to sack me. I'm going to, if I make waves, and I hate feeling like that. I'm a good actress in my own right, and I have the right to be employed, and that's what it's quite difficult to hold on to that when you're in something like Eastenders, because it's a bit like school.
It must be difficult because...
And there are some lovely people there, and I'm having a great time. There's that as well.
It's a steady job, and it's income for your children, as you've said.
And it's commutable.
But it must be difficult, because you obviously don't want to end up in that role for years and years and years, and yet it is steady income. You want to do other things as well, and it must be quite tough. quite grueling doing a series, I imagine.
It is hard.
It seems that watching it, it must be tough, and then doing it itself every week in, week out, that must be a lot of research that you use up, I should imagine.
Yeah, it is. You have to be very careful. You know, I go to the gym regularly, and we're allowed 3 weeks holiday a year. Well, I've taken mine in 3 separate weeks instead of in a bulk, because I just think.
Is that all you're allowed?
Yeah.
That is.
We're allowed 3 weeks off for work as well, extra work that we want to do, but that has to be work that we can't work for ITV. We can't
It's
do
very strict, isn't it?
any advertising at all. I understand about the advertising because you're so associated with your role, and the BBC can't be seen to promote advertising. But I was just getting on very nicely in the old voiceover market. Power gen, generating electricity, whatever the weather.
Superb.
But now I can't do any more of that.
Shame.
I think some of them snuck out and do.
3 weeks off, that's incredible. Really, it's an eye-opener.
Does that surprise you?
It
Well,
does.
that's just what most people get, isn't it?
4 weeks plus bank
4
holiday.
weeks.
No bank holiday.
I get bank holiday anyway.
I get 8 weeks.
Get 4 weeks.
You get 8.
Yeah, but I have to work bank holidays.
4 weeks plus allowing for.
5.
I do get other time off. I mean, it might so happen in the schedule that I'll get, like I don't think I'm working Friday this week. So that'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday will be clear.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Well,
Any other questions?
so lovely.
Can I ask you about the story on Cosmic Food that you did? Because that seemed a very good
Yes, it was a
Leela-based
very good
story, the
Yeah,
charity
don't
take
mind
that
me.
you did.
Oh right,
You
oh
sort of
that,
presented it and then
yes.
had your story at the end, which I think is probably the strongest story
Oh,
of the batch. But do you remember the story when you were on Gallifrey
Yes,
and you
I
went
did.
back out to
and I
in the
got
out
very
wastelands of Gallifrey?
saved a
and then you-
baby,
That's it.
and yes, I do
That seemed
remember.
very much sort of made it better, the sort of mess that there was at
Tidied
the
up the,
ending.
that's the
Yeah.
end.
Yes.
It tidied up that end nicely.
Yes, it was well
And
written,
also Leela
wasn't
standing
it?
up as well was quite good, the way they'd written.
I found the first 2 pages of that story very difficult to read. As often happens, like in the first episode of something, it was just so convoluted, and I did a lot of work on that. But once I'd done the groundwork on that, you know, when to breathe, upward inflections, all that kind of thing. Once I'd got that sorted, the rest of the flow just happened. It took me over as opposed to me taking it over.
I wondered if it was something you said, oh, I want a really strong Leela story because it was such a...
No, he
It was-
sent it
that's
to
what
me.
you got,
Yes, yes. And I forgot to take my reading glasses, and it was in very small print. And the microphone was here, and I was literally having to read it. I must have looked really peculiar reading it.
Well, it came over very well.
Thank you
anyway.
very much. Thank you.
Any other questions? Everyone's gone very quiet, haven't they?
Very quiet.
Well, I think for the time being, Louise Jameson, thank you very much indeed.
Can I just say that is one of the best interviews. One of the
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Your research and your ability.
I knew the horror movie.
Not just that, but you know, your ability to again let it go and then come back to your line. I think you're brilliant.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
They're somewhere apart from David and Albert Square.
What's next? I think we've got the charity.
Should we have a
Do you want a break first?
I don't mind, whatever. Go with the flow.
There's a couple of late arrivals and
Let the late arrivals in.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for the photo.
Okay, outside in the...
We've got some videos in the raffles.
Oh good, I'll buy some more tickets then, okay.